Hey y'all, Dixie here. I got a little something extra that I'm going to be doing, and some of y'all already know about it if you've already liked my Facebook. If you haven't yet, just go to the little Facebook F on the main YouTube page here, and it'll take you to the Homemade Wanderlust Facebook, and then like it, because once a month, every first Sunday of the month, there is going to be a live stream video from Mountain High Outfitters here in my hometown in Auburn, Alabama. And so we're doing a meeting there to kind of get people who are interested in the Appalachian Trail a little more information on it, whether it's, hiking sections or, a full-on through hike. There are several people who come to the meetings, including myself, that have some extensive backpacking experience, and a couple that have actually done at least half of the trail. You can find the videos here on YouTube and on Facebook after the meeting has been held, but if you like the Facebook and then watch the live stream, you can actually interact and ask questions and things. So each month will be a little bit different of a topic, so maybe like water filtration or sleeping systems, things like that. So if you're interested, head on over to the Facebook for the live stream, and it will be the first Sunday of each month at 7 p.m. Central Time, and we will see y'all there.
So there's two different types of fabrics that you can have here. One is going to be merino wool, which I kind of introduced with the socks. And then the other is going to be like a polyester material like Patagonia's capelline. And it's basically a synthetic material that they're using to try to mimic the best they can the properties of merino wool. So we'll go over merino wool a little bit first, and we'll show you really why it's superior in most aspects over any other material. One thing is it is softer to the skin. You have to think this is going to be like your next to skin layer. So you want something that's soft and comfortable and not going to shave you or rub you raw or anything. And this is a super soft material. Feels really, really good. It's a really fine weave wool. So don't ever mistake merino wool for like the classic wool you think about that's all itchy and scratchy. It's not that. It comes from real merino wool actually comes from sheep only from New Zealand. And like I said, it's a really fine fiber, and it allows those sheep to stay warm during the winter, but then be hot during the cool during the hot summer months. So it's a really diverse fabric. And I'm actually going to pass one of these around to you guys and just let you kind of go around and feel it and check it out and stuff, because this is what usually blows people's mind, is just the softness of this. So another thing about merino wool as compared to like a capelline, a synthetic material, it's going to be warmer. There's different weights that you can get in this. So let's see, the one I'm passing around now is a 260. That's made for cold conditions, and that's just the way that this brand Icebreaker, that's the way they like separate their warmth ratios. But you can get it in 260, or you can get it in 200. 200 is going to be a lighter weight and really a lot more versatile. We went through and looked at different temperatures along the trail as you would run into them between the months. My suggestion for you guys would be to get a 200 weight, which is this here, only because it's so much more versatile. You're not really going to get your warmth from the base layer. I mean, it is an added warmth, but it's really there more just to regulate your body temperature and help to wick moisture off your body. Merino wool also is better at regulating your body temperature than synthetics are. Patagonia actually does there's many different brands who make the same thing here. Patagonia does a really good job with their synthetic at helping to regulate the temperature, but it's a lot about the way that they weave the fibers together and stuff. I'm going to pass one of these around to you guys as well, and you'll see that it actually has channels throughout it that help to channel moisture away from your body and help it to breathe in places and be warm in other places, so it regulates your body temperature. But merino wool is the best at doing that. So go over like a little bit of a backstory of how shirts like that will actually help to cool you off. So the process of evaporation is actually a cooling process. So as sweat evaporates, that's the reason we sweat. So as sweat evaporates off your body, it actually helps to cool your body off. The only problem is, especially in our climate, down here in the South, it doesn't really want to evaporate too well when it's humid outside. So what these clothes do is they actually help to spread that water or that vapor over a larger surface area to help it evaporate a lot quicker, and that actually helps you to cool off. So merino wool is said to have like the way that it holds the moisture, it actually lets that evaporation process go on a little bit longer and helps to keep you cooler longer, which is a good thing during the summer months. Also, merino wool will hold, it's crazy. I was looking at a diagram of this stuff earlier, like microscopic, and this fiber is just, it's crazy. It actually holds the moisture on the outside of the fiber, so like, it's kind of hard to explain without looking at that picture of it, but it'll feel warm even when it's wet up to like 30% of the fabric being saturated. You actually won't even feel the wetness and it'll still feel warm to you because it holds that moisture away from your body. So the moisture is not touching you, it's going to be the dry wool that's actually on you. And that's great because, as you guys know, most of that stuff, like anything you get wet on the trail, I mean, that's the way to freeze, you know, if you get your stuff wet. But this will still, to a certain extent, keep you warm even when wet. It also has antimicrobial properties, like I talked with about the socks, which are huge. You know, I was reading a lot of stories. These guys said, you know, they would wear the shirt 10 days in a row and could still like go into town and feel like okay about themselves about being around people. Because I mean, you know, I'm sure you get some mighty stenches built up on that trail. So the antimicrobial properties are awesome. They're UPF 30, so you can use it, you know, like I said, as like a warm day layer to help keep the sun off of you and everything. You're probably not going to be carrying a big ball of sunscreen with you on the trail, so something like that will help you keep you from getting burnt. A few different companies make merino wool base layers. Icebreaker probably does it the best. You'll see, I probably should point this out while I was handing around to you guys, but they're made for hiking. They're going to have offset seams, and what that means is, unlike the shirt that I have on now that has a seam that runs directly across the shoulder, these seams are going to run down along here, and that just keeps the straps on your pack from chafing and rubbing the top of your shoulders raw and stuff. So they actually put a lot of thought into this. I have also here, this is something that I didn't even think about until I was reading up on it, and then it makes a lot of sense though. They also make this in like a quarter zip to give you even more options as far as like temperature regulation. If you get hot, you know, you can zip it down and get a little bit more airflow. So something like that's a good idea too, just to give you a little more added versatility with it. As far as synthetics, what I have here today is Patagonia's Capitoline, and like I said, different companies make this, but Patagonia's really doing the best at it right now, trying to mimic the way merino wool does. Synthetics are best for hot and humid conditions. They're actually going to expel moisture a little bit better than the merino wool does, and a little bit faster. Yeah, it's dry quicker and hold a little bit less moisture, which that is a trade-off a little bit to keeping you cool. It will keep you drier, but like I said, that evaporation process actually helps to cool you off a little bit. So having that extra water holding capacity that merino wool does actually isn't a bad thing at all. And for this one, they have three different thicknesses as well. So the lightweight here, midweight, what I have in my hand, and then thermal layer, which would be like your super cold. But once again, I'd recommend a midweight. It's the most versatile. I mean, you could use it under a layered system like this at like 20 degrees, and then you could still wear it by itself at like 60 and be fine. So it just gives you a lot more versatility, and you don't have to bring as much stuff. But I'm going to pass one of these around as well, so y'all can kind of feel the difference. It's not quite as soft up against the skin, but it still feels great. And you can actually look down in here and see, you'll see these channels that run. That's actually supposed to help the water spread out so it can evaporate quicker and give you a little space for like airflow so you can cool off a little bit. Another thing, and I know for me this would be a huge part of it, the synthetics are a good bit less expensive than the merino wool is. So a top of merino wool like the one I passed around is going to run you like right around $100, and same thing for the bottom. Whereas these capilines, like I think this one's $49. I think the midweight may be $59, but they're usually about half the price of like a merino wool counterpart. So that's also something to think about. Not as hard to take care of either. Merino wool, you can't just wash it and throw it in the dryer like you can something like that, a polyester. That one you really shouldn't dry very long either. But the merino wool is a little bit tougher to take care of. As far as the capiline itself, like I said, it's gridded to help to move the moisture. The one downfall that most people say about synthetic material is that they aren't antimicrobial. Like I said, that's a huge thing. Patagonia actually took a step to to once again try to make it mimic that merino wool, they had something called Polygene, which is like an antimicrobial wash-in treatment that they put in that actually does help. From the reviews I read, it doesn't do as good as merino wool does, but it does help some. Same thing with those. They're going to have offset seams, so they'll have seams that run along your shoulders here and not on top to keep you from getting shaved. And they're going to have some little thumb loops tacked down in there so you can get coverage all the way down to your arms. When you're moving around and stuff, it's not moving up the sleeve inside of this. And I think that's about it for my spill. Do you guys have any questions you'd like to ask? Nothing so far? All right.
Thank you so much, Ben.
You were very welcome. Very welcome.
Ben Bramlett. Thank you so much. Dane, you're up next.
Sure.
Dane Graham is going to tell us about, now that Ben's explained about the base layering, Dane is going to explain how you're going to continue your layering.
Alright, like she said, I'm going to be focusing on the installation layer and then your outer layer. I'm not going to focus too much on brands. I'm going to give you an overview of the installation itself. The brand is going to more depend on the person itself. So clothing is one of the things that's so personal. I may think this jacket is the greatest looking thing ever. Somebody else may totally hate it. It may fit me properly. It may not fit someone else properly. And that's really just something you're going to have to figure out on your own, which brand is going to fit you the best. But I will give you an overview of each type of installation, and then I also have an example of some of the brands that we carry, just for you to get an idea. So the premier installation is by far Goose Down. It is the premier installation because it's the lightest weight, it gets the warmest, and it packs the smallest. So everybody that's in the hiking industry is always trying to compromise those three things: is weight, size, and warmth. And really Down does it the best. This is the Down sweater by Patagonia. Like I said, this is just going to be an example of a full down jacket. There are several different brands that make them all to the same high quality ratio as Patagonia, and it's just going to depend on which features you value most in the jacket, which should guide you onto which brand that you should choose. Really the only downfall of Down is while it's incredibly efficient at holding warmth when it's dry, it's completely horrible at holding warmth when it's wet. So the biggest compromise has been, how do we get a down jacket that's hydrophobic? Mountain Hardwear is kind of the leading brand that's pushing the hydrophobic down aspect of it. So what they've done is actually sprayed every individual feather that's in the jacket with a DWR coating. So the plume of down itself is actually going to repel water. So they've made a couple of advancements in that. Again, that's the Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisperer that does that. The Patagonia one here is going to have a DWR coating on the outside fabric. So in the light rain, a mist, or something like that, the water is going to beat up on the outside and be able to dust it off and things like that, but it's by no means a waterproof garment. And again, to combat, like I said, the down is inefficient when it gets wet. Lots of companies are starting to do hybrid jackets. Well, they'll put a synthetic insulation, like maybe from the mid-forearm to the cuff, and then another synthetic patch above the shoulders, just at very high traffic areas that are going to tear up your down, where it's not going to tear up a synthetic fiber nearly as much. Second is going to be a synthetic fiber jacket. This one is going to be the Arc'teryx Atom. Like I said, the downfall of down is the wetness factor. The synthetic fibers is going to move a lot away from that. A synthetic fiber is still going to be able to hold its warmth even when it's saturated. I think the ratio is about, it'll still hold 80% of its warmth when it's completely soaked, which is pretty awesome. Obviously you don't want to test that out very often, but it is a thing to consider if you're around water a lot. I do a lot of kayaking, so I went with a synthetic jacket just in case, I get dunked, I roll my boat, I don't really have to worry about freezing that night just because my jacket got soaked and wet. And again, this one in particular, while it's not a rain jacket, it has been coated with a DWR spray. So again, light rain, mist, stuff like that is going to beat up on your jacket and be very easy to dust off. And and I probably didn't mention this at the beginning, but these are in descending order as price. So the premier stuff is obviously going to be a little more expensive, and then you step down to synthetic fiber is going to be a little more economical. And then the last one, the least technical of them is going to be old-fashioned fleece. It's still a really great option. It's just, it's going to be a very porous material, so it is going to be a true mid-layer. With down and with synthetic, you can get away with using those as your outer layer, just depending on the weather itself, whether it's raining or not. Obviously you're going to want to put a rain jacket over it, but if it's not raining, you can wear either one of those as an outer garment. The fleece is going to be a lot more wind permeable, so a little bit colder. You're definitely going to want to couple it with a wind shell, like a jacket like this, something like that, just to keep the wind out. And again, it doesn't get nearly as small in your pack, and it is very susceptible to water. Obviously, it's like a paper towel. It'll soak it up very fast, and it won't be able to hold its warmth after it does get wet. I didn't show these very well, but this is the down jacket once it's compressed. All of them are going to have some way for you to pack it down conveniently and stick it in your backpack. The Patagonia one fits into the chest pocket, and again, this is the down jacket. You can see how much thinner it gets. This is the Atom jacket. It packs into the hood. I've seen a lot of people use this as a pillow, so that's kind of a handy feature. Just to have one article of gear that serves many purposes, but it's not nearly as small, obviously. A little bit more of an awkward shape. And they do make ultralight versions of both of these jackets. So this is the midweight down jacket. They will make an ultralight version that can get much smaller, and the same with the Atom. They'll make a heavier duty version called the AR, so if you're in more extreme climates, that might be a good option. They also make a lighter weight version that gets smaller and is for less severe climates, I guess. So on to rain jackets. Again, rain jackets is going to be something that is just determined more by the person's style and what they value in a jacket, versus I can tell you what spec-wise would be the best jacket, but that's not going to be the best jacket for every person. So the Arc'teryx Beta AR is going to be this one right here. This is really the toughest rain jacket I've ever seen. So the industry standard as far as stitches per square inch is roughly 16 to 18. Arc'teryx doubled that with 32. So this is basically like a piece of canvas that's waterproof. Mainly, this one was built for alpine skiing, something where you're going to be up against rocks or skiing through trees. It's built to be as rugged as possible, I guess. And again, the features that people are going to value more is this one's going to have laminated backpacker pockets, which means you can still access the pockets while you're wearing a hip belt, which is really cool. And it doesn't have, like you see on this one, it has a fold over the zipper, which means the zipper itself is not waterproof. All these are going to be laminated zippers, so the zipper will be entirely waterproof without you having to fold the other piece of fabric over it. And another one is collar versus no collar. Seems kind of trivial, but again, it's one of those personal preference things, whether you're looking for one with a collar, without a collar. There's also pieces of the hood. If you do any kind of alpine climbing or anything, there'll be parts right there that'll fit to the top of your helmet. So you can put it over your hood if it's raining while you're wearing a helmet, and it'll still stay on. You can still turn your head and the hood's not going to come off or anything like that. It really just depends on what features you're looking for over, and that'll decide what brand you need to focus on. But as far as rain jackets go, across the board you're going to want a Gore-Tex rain jacket. That just means it's a waterproof fabric that's also breathable. So the fibers will be woven so tightly that they'll still be waterproof and nothing can get in, but so loosely that water vapor can escape. And again, that's all due to temperature control, and as been mentioned, the last thing you want to do while hiking, especially in cold weather, is start to sweat. That's going to be your worst enemy, is let yourself start sweating. Again, it'll have pit zips like this, so you start getting hot, you unzip those. That's going to let a lot of moisture vent out, stuff like that. Almost all across the board, the industry is going to have pit zips and stuff like that, just as more ways to ventilate yourself without actually having to take the garment off. Another big reason, another big distinguishing factor is what version of Gore-Tex you want. So Gore-Tex is just, it's basically a brand name, and there's several different stages of Gore-Tex. Like I mentioned, this one's going to be the toughest rain jacket that I've ever seen. So this is going to be a Gore-Tex Pro, over the entire garment. And you can just tell how canvas-like the material is. It's a very stiff material, but obviously very durable, and that's what it was made for. This one is going to be a Gore-Tex Pack Light, which is by far the most popular among backpackers because it's so much more flexible and it packs much smaller. And again, like I was saying, the stitches per square inch on that one is going to be closer to 32. This one drops you back down to 18, which again makes the garment much more pliable. So Pack Light would be my suggestion just because of the size it gets to. Now the features that you deem more important than the others is going to be where that you want to do your brand investigation and stuff like that. One thing, I'm kind of going to backtrack a little bit here. Something that I didn't mention, with the insulation layer, not so much with rain jackets. If you get a rain jacket that fits you, it fits you. But with insulation, you want it to fit as snugly as possible without restricting movement. So a drawback to the down jacket is it is going to be like a rigid fabric all the way around. So finding one that fits you properly is going to be another brand thing. You're going to have to try several of them on. Give yourself the bear hug. Make sure you can touch your shoulder blades without it binding in the middle and stuff like that. Another advantage of going with a synthetic is that they're not afraid to put other materials into the jacket, whereas if you're buying a down jacket, you want it to be a strictly down jacket. So with a synthetic, what they've actually done in several high traffic places, especially with the shoulder blades and stuff like that, they'll put something called Polartec, which is going to be an outsourced material that really is the best in the industry. And Arc'teryx is just basically going to collect all the best materials in the industry and stylize them and put them into one jacket. So like I was saying, you want it to fit you as tightly as possible without restricting motion. Having stretchy parts of the jacket, like at your shoulder blade, at your hips and stuff, is going to allow you to have a tighter fitting garment, but you're still going to be able to move comfortably and everything like that. I think that about covers everything that I wanted to touch on. Got any questions or anything? Oh, the healing. So those two jackets that I mentioned before are going to be for winter and for times when you're definitely going to use your rain jacket multiple times during the week. Another option is going to be an ultralight rain jacket like the Helium here. It's going to be absolutely no frills or anything, have very little pockets, if any pockets at all. All the zippers are going to be laminated again, which are going to be completely waterproof. And it's just a much thinner fabric, and this is meant to be like your summer rain jacket, an emergency rain jacket. It compresses extremely small. I didn't even think to compress one of these, but it gets smaller than this box right here, probably from here up. So it gets extremely small and extremely easy to take with you and very lightweight. But again, it's not meant to be worn continuously and take a lot of high use. It is going to be more of a delicate fabric than one of these other two jackets will be.
Do any of them have pit zips? I didn't, you may have.
Yes, they all will have pit zips except for the ultralight jacket like this.
Which, I mean, when you're wearing a raincoat, you're like, if you're moving, you're hot. So it's nice to have that.
Yeah. Like I said, it seems like a fairly trivial thing, but being able to ventilate yourself without taking everything else off to do it is a really key feature, especially now.
You can be cold and sweaty at the same time.
Yeah. And that's a recipe for disaster, especially if you're outside and you don't have access to drying your clothes and stuff like that. Letting yourself start to sweat in a cold environment is a very bad idea.
If you're northbound starting in Georgia in March, if you go with 3 layers, how often would you change your mix to cover the different seasons as you're traveling?
That is a very good question. Probably Jessica would be better at answering that for you.
I can show you what I wore and kind of when, and then if you want to me to elaborate on any of that.
Before we move to Jessica, you actually, Dane, you've got 2 questions. One is, do you have any opinions on Windstopper fleece?
Yes. Windstopper fleece is going to be more so Ben mentioned the 3-layer system versus the 4-layer system. A Windstopper fleece is going to be more for extreme environments. So you're going to have your base layer like Ben was talking about. And then a mid layer, which is very optional, especially in the southeast. Not many people do that. But a windstopper fleece would be considered your mid layer,
Right.
which you then put under an insulation under a rain jacket.
Gotcha.
So, windstopper fleece would make, it's more versatile than a normal fleece. Like I said, normal fleece is very air permeable. A windstopper fleece is going to give you more versatility. You can wear it as an outer layer instead of just an insulation layer under a rain jacket.
Gotcha. And then there was also a question from Matt Hargrove. The rain jackets, they're all taped seams, right?
Yes, they will all be seam taped. And like I said, the zippers on the outside will either be laminated or have an overhang like that. Any other questions or anything?
That's all I have. Do you guys have any other questions? Great job, Dane. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to take a second, and Jessica is going to talk a bit about clothing that she took.
Are we gonna do socks at all, or is that now or later?
I think we already did socks.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I thought something else.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do socks first, if that's all right. So just the socks that I wore, like I always had, I'd say at least 3 pair. At night I slept in like a really thick pair of, smart wools or something similar, which are the merino wool. And then during the day, especially in the summer or when it was warm, I still wore wool socks, but I wore ankle socks. That's just kind of what I preferred. And then they also have like the little bit higher ones that aren't quite, no shows or whatever, but they're a little bit higher up if your foot's rubbing on something. And then, but those were thinner. And then as far as when it was cooler and I was hiking, I still hiked in thin socks because you kind of want room in your shoe. You don't want it, your foot and your feet swell and stuff. So I just liked hiking in the thinner socks. But they were a little bit higher up, to keep your ankles warm. So that's just kind of what I did. And the reason I had the big thick ones to sleep in, it was just like, those are my sleeping socks. I don't hike in these, and that way I wasn't tempted to wear them when the other 2 were wet, because you want to have a dry pair of socks at all times to sleep in. So for when it was warm, I started off with like 2 tank tops, or for guys, a shirt or whatever, same thing, like a synthetic material, not cotton, to hike in. But this is just like a little North Face tank top. I mean, any tank top will do, but I just wore 1. I started off with 2 and decided I didn't need the weight of an extra tank top like that. It just matters, like it really does. When you add up everything, oh well, that doesn't matter that much and that doesn't matter that much, and you set it all on a scale, you're like, that kind of matters, so anyway, just real, air's ventilated. It's well ventilated. And then the shorts that I hiked in when it was warm I actually got them here before I knew any of y'all. And they were a black pair of these, but the Patagonia, and what is it? You said they're called baggies?
It's baggies. Yeah, they're barely baggies.
I just want to brag on these shorts because I still wear them now after my thru hike, 6 months in them, sliding on my butt on the rocks in the White Mountains and everything. And they dry real fast. They're not like tight, too tight fitting or anything like that. So they were awesome. So I definitely recommend those. And when it was like cooler, I thought, well, maybe I want like some kind of 3/4 breeches or something. So I hiked in those a little while, and I finally sent them home because they were too heavy when I could hike in this. And once you start getting moving in the morning, you're gonna warm up. So as long as you have stuff to be warm in at night, to me, I was like, during the day, I'll be warm enough. So now when it got colder, a lot of times I still hiked in shorts, but I just had this top. It's actually an Under Armour cold gear top. But what I really liked about it, and they talked about earlier, is it had like the thumb holes on it. So because I didn't carry gloves, I didn't need it. I had an extra pair of socks if I wanted to put on my hands to be warm, so and wear them as gloves. But so anyway, I really liked the thumb holes because, like they said, you kind of keep it down over your hand and it doesn't ride up into your coat. So I would wear, if it was cold, I would wear my tank top. I would put this over it until I warmed up, and then eventually, you pull it off. And let's see. Also, if it was raining, I would hike in my tank top and shorts, even when it was cold. And let's see, where did I put it? I have really fancy rain gear. I have frog togs, which are not attractive at all. And the first pair I started out with were blue, so I looked like a big blueberry. But so I mean, they're really light. It's $20 for the top and the bottom. If you're going through any kind of briars, they're going to tear up. If you snatch it at all, it's going to tear up. But if you just wear it and you're walking through an area that doesn't have a lot of brush, you're going to be fine. And they don't have pit zips, so it's bare minimum. But so I would just hike in when it was cold and raining, my shorts, my tank top, and then this over it, and I could pull this off, if it stopped raining or whatever. I never hiked in the long sleeve top when it was raining, because this was my night clothes, unless it wasn't raining, and then I could wear it if it was cold. I also had leggings to sleep in. I sent the leggings home when it got warm. I sent this home when it got warm. And I had my rain gear, my tank, and my shorts, and then I had my coat, which was just REI coat, synthetic material. It's not down. And the thing for me, the reason I didn't get down, I was worried about stinking when I first started. Not really worried about that anymore, because you're going to stink regardless, but I wanted to be able to wash this every time I went to town and I did laundry. So with the down, you really should use like special, I don't want to say detergent, but maybe it is detergent. And it's hard to find that in some of the towns that you come to. So I decided, just to go, and this was on sale, right? So this is what I wore, my little puffy coat. And as far as sleeping in the summertime goes, since I didn't have that, long sleeve top and the leggings to sleep in, because it's summertime, I did sleep in cotton, and I didn't die because it was summertime, so it's all good. I just had like a cotton tank top and cotton shorts, because sometimes it's nice to let everything kind of air out, while you're sleeping, especially if you've got like chafing going on and stuff like that. It's nice to just get in some cotton and let some stuff air out. So, and then, okay, one thing, when you're in town and you're washing everything, what do you wear? So when it's cold, I wore my rain gear. So when it's cold, I was like, yeah, I'm in town in my frog tog, looking all cute. And then when it was the summertime, I just had a little cotton dress that I could throw on, and I mean, it wasn't too heavy, and it was worth it to me. So I only wore this in town ever, so it was pretty much didn't smell that bad, because, most of the time I had bathed, put this on, and then I went and did laundry. So you could have, something like that, or you can still wear your rain gear. It's just when it's like really hot and muggy outside and you have to put on rain gear, it's not fun, and then you stink again. So, but do what?
Oh, good for the dress too.
Did you? You had a dress too. I hear you. Okay. And I think, and yeah, the underwear I went with Ex Officio. I cannot brag on those enough, so I wore those also. I think that's it for my clothes. I mean, you don't really wear a whole lot. You wear the same thing over and over and over again, so there's really not a whole
So you
lot.
never got cold on the trail with
I won't say I never got cold, but I was warm enough. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
you weren't scared of going and getting.
I wasn't going to get hypothermia and die. No, as long as you keep your stuff dry. You have to have the willpower when it's raining and it's cold, because if it's raining and it's cold and you're moving, you're pretty much going to be all right on the Appalachian Trail. So, if it's from
even all the way up north
March to October. Yeah, even in October. So when I was hiking up there and it was potentially going to rain, I had on my frog togs and my tank top and my shorts. And whenever I would reach a ford, like a river crossing, I'd pull this off and I'd go in this. And I mean, it was 30 degrees outside, and then I'd get out and I'd put this back on and I'd keep trucking, and I mean, you're just going to be all right, if it's raining, because you actually, I mean, like I said, you start sweating, you start getting hot. And so, but yeah, when I slept at night in Maine, I had my tank top as long as it was dry, my puffy and my leggings and my warm socks in my sleeping bag.
Which
So
is 20 degrees.
yeah, 23 degree. So, so I mean, that's why you're in a rush when you set up camp. Boy, you're ready to get in that sleeping bag, you know. So, so that's what I did. And you come to towns, you know, if you get a little uncomfortable for a week, you're going to come to a town and you're going to buy something to fix it. So, you know, it's not like you're out there 6 months straight and you can't adjust gear, because I bought my gear and I think I spent about $1,500 on my initial gear, and then I think I spent about, I don't know, another $1,000 adjusting gear along the way. So, you know, and I had no experience before, you know, so I just went out there and went for it. And so somebody that has time to test their gear ahead of time and all that, they're going to be a lot better off. So I suggest, you know, if you're going to go if you're going to hike the Appalachian Trail, get out, even if it's outside your backyard, wait till it gets pretty cold. Get out there and, you know, cook dinner and spend some time out there, you know, and when it's raining, you know, try out your rain gear, or camp in the rain, or, you know, whatever. Just try to simulate what you think you might run into and test that gear. So, all right, I think that's it. Does anyone have any other questions about what I wore?
You had several questions online about using sock liners. Did you use any sock liners?
I didn't have any issues with blisters, and I think that's when people use those the most. They have like the Gingy toe socks, or liners or whatever. I never had an issue with blister. I had one blister the whole time, and I don't even know why. It was mile 1700 and I didn't change anything with my footwear, so it was really weird. But there are some people who are plagued with them. So
right.
I did see other people use sock liners.
Okay.
I didn't myself.
Then the
dress socks works wonders whenever
Oh yeah, I guess I didn't think about
whenever
that.
it's hot, you start getting hot spots.
Yeah.
dress socks, you said?
Yeah, just a pair of dress socks.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Wearing just those or wearing it under your regular socks?
Just under.
Just under?
Under or over.
Like a real thin nylon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It just puts the friction in between the two pairs of socks versus your foot.
Yeah.
And then there was another question about if you had opinions on calf or ankle gaiters. I mean,
So I didn't use gaiters, but I saw a lot of people that did. I think it depends on the person. Like, everyone walks different, you know what I mean? And so some people walk in a way, and it's funny, you see out there, especially when it's been raining and it's muddy, like you see the pattern on people's legs, you know, like where your legs hit and stuff when you walk. And I think some people, the way they walk, they get dirt and trash and rocks and sticks slung up in their shoes more than other people do. I never really had an issue with that, or maybe some of it's like it doesn't annoy me as much, you know what I mean? But if it's an issue for you, if you find yourself walking and you're stopping to knock out your shoe and all, get some gaiters. I mean, they make real light, you know, thin ones that aren't waterproof or anything like that, but it'll just kind of keep that trash out of there so that you don't have that issue and you don't have sand and stuff getting in there, you know, rubbing on your feet while you're walking.
and then there was one more question about what was the coldest temperatures that you experienced?
The day I summited Katahdin, it was like 21 degrees.
Okay.
So that was a chilly night.
I
It
bet.
was a chilly night before. But yeah, and that's why I said it's not like you don't, like, it's not, I can't say it was never cold, but because I was, but I was never like, I'm going to freeze to death, you know what I mean? So.
But it never got down to 10 or
No, it was never, the low 20s is the coldest that I experienced. And I would say, you know, I finished late in October, so most people won't be finishing that late. And then as far as the Smokies, it got a little chilly then, but I think that was like upper 20s. But by the time you get to Maine, if you go northbound, you're like, I don't know, you're like toughened up. You know, you're kind of, I don't want to say used to it, but you're like, okay, I just have to deal with this. You know, you don't, and you just do. So, but like I said, there are towns you'll come to and you can adjust stuff. So.
And what was your start date?
March 19th. Or no, March 29th. October 19th. Anything else?
Awesome.
Georgia or Maine?
Maine.
Which one was it covering, Georgia or Maine?
Maine. Maine, yes. There was snow on the ground and everything and ice, and it got crazy up there. But like I said, you get to where you just figure it out. Like you get good at just going with the flow and, you know, acting on the fly and figuring stuff out. So by the time you get there, you're ready for it. So. you're seasoned. But yeah, in Georgia, it messes with your mind a little bit when it's cold. It's like, okay, I can't go inside. I'm not going to be able to warm up. I have, no building to get in tonight. Like, I just have to deal with this, and it's going to be okay. And you just kind of, you get seasoned to it. So. Yeah, and the thing is, if you bring extra, you can always send it home. You know what I mean? If you're worried about being cold, bring extra. And when you realize, I don't need this, I haven't used that in a week, and I am tired of carrying the weight, send it home. Because it's going to continue to warm up from when you start. So.
Thank you so much, Jessica. All right, Whitman. So for those just joining us, Whitman did half the AT southbound. He started in Maine and made it to mid-Virginia.
Well, I pretty much used the same stuff, but I went with a 4-layering system. Base layer was just a regular Marmot polyester shirt, something you get sweaty, use in the summer too. But during the winter, I'd wear this just to capture the moisture, and then this over it, and then that's it. And usually wear shorts too, because I was just kind of accepting the fact that I was going to be cold while I'm hiking, right? But midweight, use Army. Had just gotten out of the Army, so I still had some of their stuff, which is actually amazing. But mid layer, it's got the waffle top material, which helps trap some of the heat, give it some of the loft. And if it got really cold, I would wear this, because I also carried an insulation layer, so I could wear this in camp and not have to worry about this. Along with leggings, at the time I actually used yoga pants. That's all I could get, but they worked fine.
What type of rain jacket did you carry?
I carried a Marmot, which is not Vortex, but it acts pretty much the same. And this is probably the most important gear for me to have. Like, it acts as a vapor barrier. So, I mean, it doesn't matter what you got on, if you can't keep the heat in, you're going to be cold.
And you can sleep in your rain gear too. I mean, as long as it's dry. And I did, there were nights where I was cold enough to where I was like, let me get those frog togs, and you just put that on over your clothes too. So
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you'll use anything. I've heard of hammockers that put their legs in their pack, emptied out their pack and put their legs in their pack too.
I've heard that too.
Yeah. So whatever works.
Is your puffy jacket, is it synthetic or down?
It is synthetic. I'm still a little wary about down, just especially on the East Coast. There's a lot of wet conditions, so I'd rather just carry a synthetic and know that I'll be able to retain some, insulation. But downs were extremely popular too.
Yeah.
So, and your jacket, your insulation jacket, that should be pretty much just for camp. Yeah.
And you kept all that from Maine to Virginia?
Yeah. The only thing I sent home was my midweight.
When you got further south?
Yeah. Whenever I hit the mid-Atlantic states, it was horribly hot. And, I sent this home and the rain pants, which the only reason I carried these was, to have another vapor barrier, which actually served me really well on a couple occasions.
Did you hike? You didn't hike whole lot in your rain pants,
No, only once.
Yeah.
Whenever I did 4 peaks in a hailstorm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was sweating underneath it, but it was keeping me warm.
I feel like a lot of people kind of ditch the rain pants after a while, or keep them for, like you said, just.
It's worth the wait for me to have a
a fallback plan.
Yeah, exactly.
But you get so hot while you're hiking that you unzip your raincoat and then you zip it back up,
Yeah.
and then so the pants were just too much.
Yeah, I never wear it whenever it's raining anyway, because it's a shower to me.
Yeah.
But, it's really just to act as a vapor barrier to keep the wind gusts from pulling all my heat away. Like I said, insulation jacket, synthetic. It's light, compressible. The warmth to weight ratio is fantastic.
And synthetics are pretty carefree material.
And like my sleeping bag, it's synthetic. I didn't set my tent up right like one of the first times I was out, and it rained and it just kind of flooded the bottom of my tent. Half my bag was soaked, but I was still warm. So, you know, down, that's not going to happen. You're going to be cold.
A beanie, did you carry a beanie? I didn't mention that, but I did have one.
I did. I didn't carry this one. I carried a Columbia, I believe it's called Omnis Shield.
Okay.
It has like this, it almost looks like aluminum foil.
Yeah, like that reflective.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's super thin, super light, and it works when it's wet. Like mornings, whenever I get up and it was cold, I would just throw that on, and that alone would heat me up. You know, so I wouldn't have to, you know, put a bunch of layers on and then stop, take them back off. And one thing with your rain jacket, like make sure it fits over all of your layers. So, yeah.
What brand of socks did you wear?
What's that?
What brand of socks did you wear?
Darn Tough.
Yes.
And Think Fits.
Smart wool. Or,
Yeah. But all merino wool.
Yeah, I have to say on Darn Tough, I forgot to mention, they have like a lifetime guarantee. So if you get a hole in them, they'll replace them. Like
Yeah,
they
you
basically
can
dare you to.
Send them back in.
I had a mouse chew hole and they replaced it.
So,
But smart wools, I love smart wools too.
yeah.
Yeah.
But one thing that most people don't think about is, you know, losing heat through conduction. So bring like a butt pad. You know, just if you're using a closed cell foam sleeping mat, you need to cut it down to, you know, to fit your body size, just so it's not as bulky. But just keep a little square of it, so that, you know, whenever it's cold out, you sit on this, and it, you know, helps retain body heat. And during the summer, I opted for just board shorts, just because they're stretchy, they're moisture wicking, and they don't cause chafing at all, and they dry super fast. So. And I believe that's it. Any questions or?
We're good to go.
Thank you so much, Whitman. We appreciate you sharing.
And the military surplus stuff is really good stuff. So it's a cheaper way to go if you need to.
Awesome.
So when your socks get wet and you hit camp, what, you dry them on the fire, or?
I tried that a few times and it didn't work out too well. So
Okay.
I kept 3 pairs of socks, and I would just rotate them out and keep one for.
Turn them inside out and lay them inside the tent overnight and hope that they dry.
Yeah, or put it in the bottom of my
Your
sleeping
sleeping
bag.
bag, yeah.
I hang mine from like the crest pole in my tent. Just loop them over that during the night and let them dry out up
Try to
there.
get some air movement.
Since your standard of living goes down a little bit,
Yeah.
you know,
I did my
Moist,
laundry in a McDonald's
slightly.
bathroom and hung it in the bush to dry.
slightly wet socks is acceptable for, you know, your standards at the moment. But during the colder months, I work at Kohl's, which I wouldn't recommend really. They're not stretchy, they don't hold up well. And, for me, they cause a lot of chafing.
What are those?
They're cool.
Oh,
The seams, they're not, you know, too smooth, so that's what really caused an issue for me. So that's just something to keep in mind. All right.
So 95% of the time you're in shorts.
Yeah, and I would put leggings under that, like yoga pants. That worked fine for me, even during some of the colder months.
You don't want anything that's going to restrict your range of motion, you know. So, you know, what even when it seems cold, because I used to, you know, hike in Jersey and New York, you know, 17, 18 degrees, and you would think that you would need to put a lot of clothes on, but once you get moving, like you get warm really quick.
Just like running,
Yeah.
like this morning running at 5 a.m.
Right.
It seems cold until you run about a half a mile.
Yeah, exactly.
You're still in shorts.
That's one thing you should definitely know is like whether or not you run hot or cold. I run extremely hot and I sweat a lot, so it prevents me from wearing any sort of layering system most of the time.
It's hard when you first have to get out of your sleeping bag in the morning, but once you do, you're like, it's like, okay, if I can just hurry up and start walking, I'll be okay.
It's the best motivation to get some miles in.
Yeah.
Is that why some people eat while they walk breakfast?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, and you're like kind of constantly eating. I was anyway. I ate all the time. Like I was. Yeah. Just. Yeah.
All right. If there's no other questions, I appreciate y'all having me.
All right, now Russell Colbert, our shoe manager, is gonna talk about what you want to look for when you're trying to decide on hiking shoes.
Alright, so like most clothing, footwear is going to be pretty much whatever you want to go with. People walk differently, people have preferences. I'll just go over kind of the basics of what you're going to see on most of the shoes on the AT and kind of some improvements you can make on that. So this is the Vask Breeze 2.0. It's Vortex. It's got Vibram lugs or a sole. It's kind of rigid, so you got some support there. And one thing I will say about Vortex, or basically if you're hiking on the AT or if you're doing any long distance hiking, you're going to get moisture in your shoes no matter what. So having a Gore-Tex, even though it is a great, waterproofing material and it is breathable, it really just can't compete with sweat and just rain or anything like that. However, if you need the ankle support, there's really not much of an option for non-waterproof unless you go online. Most retailers are going to carry waterproof high boots. But if you wanted to stay with a high boot, this is a Solomon, and it is very flexible. So it's going to feel more comfortable if you have a lighter pack or anything like that. And it is still Gore-Tex, however, it is a little bit lighter weight, and it isn't just wool leather. It's more of a nylon, so it may breathe a little bit better there. And then probably the most popular, I would say, is a running or trail running shoe. You still have very good tread, but it's going to be super breathable, and the main reason why you'd want a breathable shoe, especially like in the winter, is you're not usually going to put your shoes in your sleeping bag. So you're basically going to have a break in the morning. And that's not going to be very nice when you have those cozy warm socks on. And you have not only a wet shoe, but a cold shoe, freezing shoe. And trust me, that's from experience. But if you did want to go with more of a high shoe or a waterproof shoe, there are some brands like Keen that have a waterproof low shoe. And she mentioned gaiters before. That could be a possibility, a waterproof gaiter, and then doing a waterproof shoe if you really wanted to have a waterproof system for your feet. And
then it's still going to get wet.
Right, and like they were saying, you're going to sweat, and even the sweat alone, even if you have, let's just talk about a wool sock. How he was talking about the moisture goes to the outside of the sock. Well, at a certain point, it can't go any farther, so it's going to be stuck in your shoe. And if you are worried about rocks or anything going in to your shoe, then you can get a gaiter. I would say, just in general, how leafy it is on the floor of the Appalachian Trail, you're not going to have to deal with a lot of rocks. However, I can't speak for like Maine or anything like that, but just in general, I don't think you need to worry that much about rocks. And for women, this would be the women's version of this Salomon right here. It's the X Ultra Mid. It's very flexible as well, and very popular on the trail would be like the XR Mission, the X Mission by Salomon as well. It's super flexible, not waterproof. It does have a little bit of rigid. It is pretty stable there on the sole, which will offer some support. I would not recommend using a trail runner that is flexible if you are going to have a lot more weight. So if you're carrying 50 pounds and you just want to have those luxuries, most likely you're going to want to have a higher boot because your ankles will fatigue, and that could cause injury. So that's just something to think about. And that's pretty much it for the basics. I mean, they're a very personal thing. So really you just have to find the right shoe for you. Do you have any questions about shoes? Okay. All right, awesome. I pretty much covered it.
I will say for before I started, I had extensive ankle surgery, so that was a big concern of mine. And I started off with Merrell Chameleons, kind of a thicker and heavier shoe, and I had nothing but problems. And then I switched to a trail runner. And I think just it being more of a minimalistic shoe, it allowed my foot just to be a natural foot, and it strengthened my ankle and all of that. And, that really works to my advantage. So something to think about.
And buy multiples, probably. If you like a shoe, buy 2 or 3, because I know with certain shoes, especially trail runners, every year they come out with a new one, and you might not have it at the next stop. So
always give the company a call first, because they're more than willing to send out free replacements, or at least they were with me.
Huh? Did you have to change sizes?
No, you can go.
I'll talk to you.
I mean, I've heard people need to run it.
Thank you so much, Russell. Thanks for all the great information.
So I started off with a boot. I didn't, I knew that was the most traditional thing, like a leather boot. I'm going hiking and I need my leather boots. I started off with a Loa. It wasn't a real high ankle, but probably like, I guess, mid ankle. And they were comfortable boots. I never felt like I had to break them in or anything like that. But I was afraid that I would need ankle support, so that's why I got them. Well, they ended up causing me more trouble because the ankle of the boot, even though they were properly sized, because your feet are going to swell, they're going to get bigger, so you want them to probably be a little bit bigger than what you have. I went with like one size bigger. I don't know if you half size up or one size. But you want to, when you tie it up and you hit your toe on the ground, your toe should not hit the front, because if it does, when you're going down a mountain, your toe is going to be drumming on the front and you're going to lose your toenails, and that's not fun. So you want to make sure that that's not going to happen. But anyway, the boots drummed on my ankle, and I got tendonitis of the Achilles within like 3 or 4 days of being on trail with the boot. Even though I had worn it a good bit around town, and I'd worn them for several weeks before I started. But when you're going up and down, it does things to your foot. So unless you really think that you need that ankle support, and even like you said, you thought you did, but you ended up kind of doing better without it. But I would almost recommend try a trail runner, unless like what Russell said, you have a ton of weight on your back. But I would almost recommend try a trail runner, and if you feel like you need the ankle support, then swap. But trail runners are not going to last you as long as a boot will. A boot's going to last you closer to what, maybe 1,000 miles or so. I mean, I guess you can check the the recommended time from the company. But trail runners, I personally will not stretch one of these over like 500 miles or so. I did, and I got these pair right here. All of my trail runners were Salomons. I didn't wear any other brand of trail runner. I loved Salomons, so I stuck with them. The first pair I got were Gore-Tex, and they were women's. I have no idea what one this is. But anyway, it's just a Gore-Tex Women's Solomon Trail Runner. And I realized that, you know, they just weren't drying out fast enough. So after I wore those out, I went with this pair here, and they are men's. And the men's shoe just fit me well. I like the way it felt. So ladies, don't go, oh, it's a man's shoe. Like, it might work out better for you. So, and I thought, well, I don't care. This isn't a fashion show. You know, who cares if my toe is poking through and, you know, everything else. Like, as long as there's tread on the bottom, why do I need to replace them? Well, the support in them will go. So your foot then, you know, like where your arch is, it's going to start drumming like that, you know, and eventually that plantar fascia in the bottom of your foot's going to get aggravated, and mine did. So I ended up with plantar fasciitis, or plantar fasciitis, however you want to say it, and that hurts. It feels like a lightning storm is going on in your feet. My feet were really swollen, and so that's why you don't want to stretch them too far. So that's why I look at what the recommended mileage is. I won't push them past 500. When I got plantar fasciitis, I was pushing like 700 in a pair of trail runners. So I ended up with 2 pair of these. These are the ones. These are not Gore-Tex, and they dried out a lot faster. These are the ones I summited Katahdin in, and then I also had this pair here. So, and then another thing to consider, other than just the shoes that you're going to wear on your feet while you're hiking, is camp shoes. So when you're in these shoes all day, you need to get out of them. You need to let your feet breathe. A lot of people end up with like trench foot because they don't swap socks enough. They don't let their feet air out. So even when it was cold, I went with sandals to wear at camp, and I would just wear those thick wool socks with them. And you know, these you could like strap on with your socks or whatever. And then when it got when it got warmer, I went with a pair of these. They're both Tevas. These were heavier, so even when it got cold, when I got to Maine, I just stuck with these, and with my sock in it, it just looked like a Ninja Turtle, you know, like Ninja Turtle feet. But so anyway, and then also you're gonna want to use probably your camp sandals or shoes. A lot of people use Crocs, but potentially when you ford a river, now some people are gonna argue and be like, you should do it barefooted, and you should do it with your regular shoes on, and you should do it in these sandals, or you should do it in whatever you can keep your balance in and walk across that river in. So, but these probably would have been good for that, but I still have these, so I actually forded rivers in these. Not saying that's what you should do, that's just what worked for me. With footwear and a lot of this gear, that's what people are gonna say, oh, this is the best and that's the best. No, what works for you and your situation is the best. So another thing with feet that you're gonna deal with is probably insoles. A lot of people try to get insoles. I don't know if you got any special insoles while you were hiking. I would tear out the factory ones, you know, throw those out. To start with, I went with the Sole brand. I thought that it would be good because these you can like put in the oven, and you know, they tell you what temperature to bake them at, or whatever. You put them in your shoe, and then you put your foot down in it, and it like molds to your foot. So I was like, that's cool. It'll be, you know, my exact foot. And those were fine. You know, they didn't really, I don't think they caused me any issues. I also had a pair of Super feet. When my feet started swelling pretty bad, I just wanted to change something up. So I went with this. And you'll find with feet, some people struggle all the way from Georgia to Maine, and like somewhere in Maine, they finally get it right, you know, and it's just like, you just have to figure out what works for you. And then finally, what ended up, when I had that plantar fasciitis, what finally did it for me, these are like 50 bucks a piece. I got like a $20 pair of Dr. Scholl's for plantar fasciitis from Walmart, and those were lifesavers. So those ended up, you know, saving my feet, and then doing other things like stretching. And it's real important to stretch your calf and your that plantar fascia. All of that stuff needs to be stretched out. So but that's pretty much, that was my footwear. So, do they have any questions, or any of y'all have any questions? And they say that a pound, what is that, a pound on your foot is like 5 pounds on your back or whatever. So, you know, keep that in mind when you're picking out shoes too. So.
Whitman, anything that you'd like to, that you want to add about shoes? Okay. So, Jessica, when you're on the trail, like, so how many pairs of shoes were you carrying with you at a time?
Just like my trail runners that I wore hiking, and then my camp shoes.
Okay.
And you can hang your camp shoes like on a carabiner or on the back of your pack, you know, as long as it won't annoy you flapping or something. But do what?
Not going through me. Blowdowns stole mine.
Some what?
The
Some?
blowdowns, I like crawling underneath it.
Okay, not in Maine. But yeah, that was it. Just my camp shoes, and like I said, a lot of people wear Crocs, just something that your feet can kind of air out. It is nice to have something with a strap on the back of it, like Crocs or these other sandals, because if you want to go to the water source or something like that, and you don't want to put your trail runners or boots back on that you've been in all day, that way it's something that kind of holds on to your foot. And then some people end up like having issues bad enough to where they walk in their camp shoes, like, you know, till they can get to town and fix whatever's going on with their feet. So that's another reason why it's good to have like a strap on. And Russell's planning on hiking in his
Probably Lunas now.
Lunas. But yeah, there are some people who hike in sandals the whole way. So
Okay.
Lunas or what are Chacos?
Chacos.
What was that? Crocs or like tethers, strap on, like that's essential. Like I tried to get away with not having any at the beginning, and
Yeah, you want camp shoes for sure.
There's a question about, did you wear camp shoes like when you go into town or on 0 days?
Yes. I wore my sandals instead of my hiking boots on 0 days. So, how about you in town? Do what?
I just didn't wear any.
Oh, you didn't wear any shoes? You went barefooted? Oh, well, that's one way to do it. But yeah, I just wore my sandals in town, just to let your feet air out. That's real important. Like let your feet air out. Like, you know, rinse them off. Like just, you know, you don't want trench foot. You don't want foot punk.
They're the money makers.
Money makers?
Yeah, your feet.
They are.
Like when you stopped for lunch, did you like take your
Yes.
shoes off?
Most of the time I did. If I knew I was going to be there for a while. And after I started having some foot issues, like I would stop every few miles and prop my feet up, take my shoes off, rub them, you know. You have to take care of your feet because that's what's going to get you there. So it's hard to do it without any. It can be done, but it's not as easy. So.
You use the baby wipes at the end of the day for your feet.
Yes, I was all about
So
some baby
just do your
wipes.
body and then use the same.
Yep. Yeah, or you can just you know, pour water on them, or like even if you find a cold spring or something like that, it's good to soak them in because that coolness, you know, helps with the swelling and everything. So because your feet will swell, they will. So.
Hand sanitizer also works well. It'll help dry out.
So just use that on your feet. You just rub it down on
Yeah,
your
that's what I.
Did you do that daily or just when?
Yeah. Pretty much good.
How do you check it? Everybody talks about hot spots. I don't know.
You feel
What
it.
is that?
You don't feel it. It's almost like the beginning of the blister. But it's where you're like.
It's just the heat from the friction. I mean,
Yeah.
you start feeling like that's kind of hot, you know. And,
So if you feel it, so when you have a stop, let's say you do 7 miles and then you have a stop and you feel that hot spot, what do you do?
moleskin, duct tape.
Moleskin, do some kind of second skin on it to take the abrasion away from the spot that's already. So what a hot spot is basically a layer of skin has separated from the rest and it's under there doing this, and eventually that's going to fill up with your sweat, which makes a big old blister. So you want to either put moleskin over it or something to take away the friction.
So for the first 3-4 weeks, probably it'd be good to have moleskin.
Yeah.
Just
Definitely.
I would
definitely.
say,
I would
yeah, the
carry
day you
that all the
start out,
time, but
even if you feel like, oh, you never had problems. But
I didn't. I mean, just that one, you know, but you know, I started with moleskin because I didn't know. You know, I didn't know if I was going to have issues or not, and I feel like it's more common to have blisters than to not. So I would recommend having it. But I mean, if you're out there and you're like, oh man, I don't have any, like somebody else probably will. You know, if you're out there when a lot of people are, or I mean, duct tape. You know, anything that you can just kind of.
moleskin's gold. You can trade anything for moleskin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, whenever I had really bad hot spots, I tried duct tape, moleskin, but dress socks and wool socks.
Cut back on.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, like moleskin's like like a fix, a temporary fix, but if you're still having friction, you know, it's like, how do you stop the friction? Like, how do you fix that? So.
It was night and day.
And that's like a lot of people that get blisters in between their toes. It's just the way that they walk, like their toes rub. So that's why they have those Injinji toe sock liners, because then your toes are rubbing on, you know, like the sock is in between it. So it's kind of funny to see all these guys out there wearing toe socks, but it's, you know, hey, it works, so who cares?
Jessica, I know you mentioned it earlier on about the men's shoes, but and Whitman, you two, did your foot size change at all, like from the time you started to the end?
Yes. When I came home, I couldn't wear any of the shoes that I had.
Really?
Yes. Like mine was a drastic change. I mean, my feet were swollen the whole time, but I feel like a lot of people's change, but I don't know. Maybe mine was more drastic, but it was like pregnant lady feet. It was like they were ogre feet is what I call them, but they were bad. So they finally started shrinking down now. Like they're not, you know, they're not as ogreish. And I can kind of start wearing some of my old shoes, but I definitely noticed a big change. I don't know.
Whitman?
Didn't notice much of a change at all.
Except depends on the person.
Wow. And then there's another question. Has anyone heard of using rubbing alcohol to strengthen your feet for the hike? Yeah?
Yeah, that's what I'm recommending.
Okay.
Huh.
Yeah. It basically dehydrates the skin on the outside.
Okay.
Dries out the skin. It's a common practice in military training.
Really?
Yeah, take care of your feet at the end of the day.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, we can open it up for just some general Q&A questions. If anyone has any other questions for Jessica.
Did you bring a map with you?
I used the. Do y'all have a copy of that? I used the. It's called the AT guide. So it's like for those of y'all out there, it's like the green book, the AT guide, and it's a. Oh gosh, who's the author? I think David Miller.
David Miller.
Yes, AWOL is his trail name. So, but that's the best guide. They have one that the ATC puts out. It's not as user friendly. So, and when I say that, like in the ATC's, you know, guidebook, they have like a little W means maybe not a reliable source of water, and big W means it is reliable. In this book, it's like a picture of a water drop and it's full, or it's like halfway. So to me, rather than trying to remember like, okay, this letter means that, you know, this, it's like you see the picture and you're like, oh, okay. You know, and so it's just more user friendly, and I definitely recommend that. And then they also have apps that you can get on your phone, Gut Hooks app. So what did you use?
I had both, but the Gut Hook app
Yeah.
was just an amazing thing to have. It will tell you exactly how far you are.
And when you buy that,
or shelter.
Where's that?
It's called Gut Hooks.
Gut hooks.
yeah, just like it sounds, a gut thing. When you buy that book right there, you can get it to where it's like loose leaf, or, you know, bound like that. You can also get a PDF version. So I knew that my parents wanted to follow along and see where I was and all that. So I got that version, and then I also got the PDF, and I just had it printed out, and they would send me, you know, pages. So I could just throw them away, you know, and some people will take that and rip the pages out like once they go along, but, you know, I kind of wanted to have mine back home so I could continue to look at it, you know, for sentimental reasons or whatever. But yeah, so you can, you know, or you can get the loose leaf and throw those out as you go. I mean, but I wouldn't take the whole shebang with you, you know, just if you have somebody that can mail you parts at a time, then, you know, that's what I would do. Any other questions?
Jessica, you got one online about how you maintain the battery life on your electronics on your phone.
So I used just a backup battery charger. Mine was like a Sound Logic brand, I think, but Anchor, I think, is the most popular brand out there. And so with that, you can, when you get to town, and I recommend having a charger for it and like the brick part, and a charger for your phone, so you can find an outlet, you know, both at one time, instead of having to wait for one and then do the other. But my Sound Logic, which I don't think was near as high quality as the Anchor, got me like 2.5 full charges. And if you keep your phone on airplane mode, then it lasts a lot longer anyway. And then only take it off of airplane when you're like trying to send out a text or a call, and you're like, hey, this is my moment to check, what's going on in the world. But I used mine a lot because I was taking pictures and all of that. So with that backup battery charger that gave me, 2.5 full charges plus my phone fully charged when I went out there and using airplane mode, I was fine for at least 5 or 6 days. So you learn to limit yourself. You're like, okay, I really wanted to get another podcast in today, but I'm gonna put it down and just sing to myself. I learned most of the words to "We Didn't Start the Fire." That was my mission. So I'm gonna finish learning it on the PCT. But yeah.
Fall asleep with your headphones in.
Do what?
Sat on it.
Do what?
Fall asleep.
Oh no, yeah, that's bad. And then wake up with it dead. Yeah, and that's so sad. Like you wake up and you're like, what? Come back to life. Can't be real. Oh, and another thing, any electronic that you don't want to die. I didn't really have the issue with my headlamp, but your phone and your backup battery charger, if it's cold, sleep with it in your sleeping bag because it will kill it dead to be laying out and be cold. And even when you're hiking, if it's real cold, take it out of your pack or whatever, put it in your pockets, your coat pocket or something, because it's amazing. It just goes. You watch it go from like 99 to like 62. You're like, what happened? It's too cold.
This is actually another pretty interesting question. I'm going to kind of ask it in a different ways. The question is about getting mail from home and how did you guesstimate the timing for your packages? But I guess my question would be like, how far in advance did you need to let your family know to send you something and where to send it?
I usually didn't push it much more than a week. Like if I knew, okay, I'll be at X place in a week, then I'd get them to send it. And I mean, you can send it out way further in advance than that, but the thing is, do you know what you want to eat for dinner, I don't know, a month and 3 days from now? No. Well, you're surely not going to know out there because your tastes are going to change so much. Like, you get sick of something, like something that you might love, you're going to be sick of it, like that. So I would not recommend like doing food drops for the whole trip and planning, because part of the beauty of it is being able to not have a schedule and just kind of go with the flow. So if I decided, okay, in a week I'm going to stop here, then I'd call somebody up. But if you don't have that luxury of having somebody to help you out, then it might be kind of tough. But I would say a week, and then you just put on there, for thru-hiker, put the real name, like you might have a trail name and all, but you need to put your real name because they might check your ID. And then, hold for thru-hiker, and then maybe like an ETA. And it doesn't have to be a certain, like they're not going to throw it away. I actually had a package that somebody sent to me on the trail, and my mother failed to let me know that somebody was sending me a package. And it sat in Virginia until, I don't know, about Christmas time, and I went through Virginia in like May. So
wow.
It was still there. So I mean,
And so will they forward any mail drops for you, or is that difficult to do?
Yes, they will do that. Especially if it's like priority mail, and it's at the if it's at a hostel, I don't know about
did it for me a couple times.
The hostels you did.
Yeah,
okay.
It just depends on the owner.
Yeah, it just depends. I mean, a lot of folks try to help you out there. I mean, they know it's tough, and they're they try to work with you, but I never tried to get a hostel to do it. If I thought I would bounce something forward, then I would put it in a priority mail box, and you can call the post office and say, hey, bounce this to wherever, and as long as it's not opened, then you can send it ahead for no additional cost. So sometimes that works well. I think like people who have a lot of medication, or some people I've heard do like town clothes that way, and we'll bounce them and stuff like that. But it's just anything that you don't want to tote on your back, but you might need it at times, you can have it sent, ahead. And then, but when you open it and then you close it back, and then you have to pay to send it again. But as long as you don't open it, you can keep bouncing forward. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you know like the staples of your diet, like ramen, 24
I didn't get
hours.
tired of it. I didn't get
Yeah.
tired of
You know those
ramen
things, you
ramen.
can send it ahead, and that'll save a little bit of money because gas stations are not much more expensive, but enough to matter.
Gotcha.
See, I felt like I was double spending. Like if I sent it ahead and then I could have bought it there, but I don't know. I guess you'd really have to balance it out because they do capitalize on the opportunity to sell to hikers. I mean, when they know they're the only place there, like you know. But
You've got limited mobility,
I
so.
would say there are about 5 or 6 towns that I would recommend. Like, okay, you probably want to food drop there, but other than that, I don't know. I like to have the option when I was there because, like I said, you might get sick of something. I got food poisoning out there, and the stuff I had in my pack when I had food poisoning, I never wanted to see it again. I was just like, I don't ever want to see that again, and it made me nauseous to like see it on the shelf, you know. So, and then if I had had that planned out for the rest of the next 3 months or whatever, that would have been a bad deal. So.
Wow.
Don't eat berries.
No, I ate a lot of berries, but just know what you're eating. No, it was food poisoning. It was like at a hostel, a frozen chicken club sandwich. So I wasn't satisfied with the food in my pack. I decided to splurge, and I got burned.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm gonna close out the video portion of this. Again, I want to thank my crew experts, Ben over there in the corner, wave Ben, and Whitman over here. We've got Dane. You guys got to move up a little closer. Dane, Russell, thank you guys. You guys gave amazing information. Appreciate all you contributed. Of course, Jessica has been such a great partner in all this. I so appreciate her. Thank you.
Okay, so I am here at Amicalola State Park, and there's this nice little compartment overhead, so that's the opening, where you can put like a headlamp